So I'm really excited for today's topic because we are going to be discussing something known as co-regulation. Now, we'll define what co-regulation is in just a moment, and we'll talk about how you can better co-regulate and some tips and strategies for how to be more effective in co-regulation. But I want you to know first that if this is something that you're not familiar with, chances are, as a fearful avoidant, not only is this causing you to feel way more burnt out and even exhausted around the company of other people, but you may find that this blocker in terms of being able to co-regulate effectively also makes you feel drained, makes you enter into one-sided relationships quite frequently, and that can obviously cause burnout, resentment, and even feelings of being taken advantage of. And you may struggle to actually progress your relationship beyond the power struggle stage. So, if you're not familiar, we talk about in other videos on this channel how we've got the dating and honeymoon stages, then we progress into the power struggle stage. But there's really powerful lessons to be learned in the power struggle stage. And so once we make it beyond that, we can move into the stability, commitment, and bliss stages. But we really have to be able to co-regulate in order to progress. So in this video, we're going to talk about what co-regulation is. We're going to talk about the different types of co-regulation. And then we're going to talk about where you might be blocked specifically if you are a fearful avoidant listening to this, and what we can do to really break through this and evolve so that our relationships can evolve along with us. So first and foremost, co-regulation is actually something that all mammals do. And on one hand, it's essentially this idea that we can harmonize with the people's nervous system functions around us and take on some of their state. It's essentially a form of attunement. Now, you can think of it this way. Oftentimes, all mammals are essentially going through this harmonization process where their brain and their nervous system are reading into the state of another person, taking on specific cues about how stressed somebody might be, how joyful somebody might be, how calm somebody might be through different features that we're observing. This can include things like micro expression, body language, tone of voice, all sorts of things. And this harmonization allows us to really build relationships based on attunement. It helps us read people. It helps us get into a position where we feel like we can let our guard down or realize we have to put our guard up. But this harmonization form of co-regulation is not the only form of co-regulation. There's also something called behavioral co-regulation. And this happens at a nervous system level as well, but happens at a broader level overall. Now, behavioral co-regulation is essentially this idea that we can change our behaviors as individuals to help somebody else in their emotional state and vice versa. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I, see a friend of mine who's under some state of distress. I first will have this sort of harmonization form of co-regulation where I'm picking up on these cues, to some degree taking it on. And then I can actually shift my behavior to make sure that I am able to be there for you in a productive way. So for example, I might give a friend a hug. I might get really present with them and ask them how they're doing and if everything's okay and ask them if they want to talk. So behavioral co-regulation is sort of the next step after that original harmonizing, where we notice these different cues. And then in the behavioral co-regulation piece, we are then able to connect to other people and shift our behavior to help the person on the outside actually be able to soothe their nervous system. So the really interesting part here for fearful avoidance is that fearful avoidants are actually excellent at this in a one-way version. We're going to talk about that. So, fearful avoidants tend to be hyper attuned to other people. They tend to be very harmonized with other people's nervous systems, sometimes to the degree of enmeshment, but they tend to be really good at being able to change their behaviors to make other people feel comfortable. In fact, I would actually say this is something that fearful avoidants tend to be better at than most other attachment styles, because they're so hyper vigilant and so quick to be able to pivot and pick up on these different social cues. Obviously, we know a lot of this, if you've been following this channel, comes from if you go through a lot of chaos in your environment growing up. You're in the training grounds for co-regulation. You're learning to attune to people and wait for the other shoe to drop and react quickly. So there can be, maybe sometimes unhealthy roots of how extreme, co-regulating fearful avoidance can be. But the place where fearful avoidance actually struggle is in receiving co-regulation from other people. Now, when I mentioned earlier that this can actually be something that blocks you in further stages of relationships, in the dating and honeymoon stage, how good fearful avoidants are at harmonizing with other people and then co-regulating to shift their behaviors to be there for them allows them to build these really deep connections where other people that they are connected to feel seen, feel heard, feel understood, feel valued, um, and feel looked out for, really. And this can be something that actually draws a lot of people into the fearful avoidant. But where fearful avoidants get blocked is they don't let people co regulate with them. They don't let people, in various degrees, allow their actions to shift and help soothe and calm fearful avoidance. In fact, what I will often see, even with fearful avoidants who lean anxious, is the vast majority of the time, I would say over 95% on average of fearful avoidance relationships, okay, are fearful avoidants co-regulating on behalf of others, but not receiving co-regulation. In fact, fearful avoidants, when they feel really distressed, often retreat to the space within themselves, even to the point of like avoiding other people, sort of holding up away from other people as a means of co-regulating, because they do not know how to allow other people to really support them and help them and honor them if they're going through distress. So, there's some really important things that fearful avoidants have to learn here. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself getting trapped essentially in these one-way relationship dynamics where you feel like you are constantly giving co-regulation to other people, but not receiving. And eventually, whether you're aware of this or not consciously, this will actually cause you to feel resentful, frustrated, unseen, unimportant at times. And the reality is, for a lot of fearful avoidance, the work actually has to be done within the relationship to yourself and to your own fears about what it means to actually receive support. So, I'm going to cover a few really important things to practice here that will help you break through, especially if you find yourself being stagnant in relationships or getting stuck. But before I do, I also want to let you know that we actually have a whole course on this for each of the different attachment styles, because you can imagine the different attachment styles struggle with this in different ways. And if you want to do a deeper dive into that, we actually have a 14-day free trial just for a really limited time that you can check out using the link down below, that will give you access to not just this course, but actually all of the courses at the Personal Development School for that 14-day period for a limited time. So I'll put that link in the description box below. Now, some powerful tips is that you have to actually first overcome your fears of receiving. I have other videos on this channel that do talk about reprogramming, so I'm not going to go too far into it here, but we can recondition our subconscious mind to remove these fears. A lot of fearful avoidants have these really, really profound fears about if I receive from somebody else, then I am going to count on them and then they're going to betray me, or they're not going to be there for me consistently and I'm going to feel helpless. So there can be betrayal fears around co-regulation. There can be fears of opening up and relying on somebody, but then them not following through and then you feeling helpless. So a big fear around feeling helpless or out of control or powerless. And there can be a big fear of being vulnerable and feeling weak because of that, or being abandoned once you're vulnerable and you've allowed somebody in and built that connection. And so we have to first, in order to receive proper co-regulation from other people, allow other people to attune to us, to see us. I mean, fearful avoidants get so afraid of being seen by people in a really vulnerable and honest way. Fearful avoidants are good at being like vulnerable enough where it feels like they're vulnerable, but not being really vulnerable about the things that truly feel most vulnerable to them. So when we look at this dynamic, a huge practice is going to be that you have to actually practice removing, reconditioning these fears that may be there in the form of core wounds of feeling powerless, helpless, weak, if you're vulnerable, betrayed, abandoned, anything like that. Then what you have to practice, or sort of step two, is doing some exposure work on opening up, doing one small thing over time where you can actually expose yourself to receiving support, asking for help, asking for small things. It doesn't have to be big things right away, but actually allowing yourself to ask for support from people around you if you need it, and deciding what that would even look like. I mean, so many fearful avoidants are like, I don't even know what support I would need to have or what support I would like to receive. Well, a lot of the support is going to be, you first understanding what would make you feel soothed through other people? Would it be, physical touch? Would it be a hug or a back rub if you're feeling stressed? Would it be words of affirmation like reassurance and connection? Would it be somebody just being really present with you and talking to you about things, bouncing ideas back and forth so you can work out what it is that you're going through in your mind? But you have to define what support would look like from other people around you and allow yourself to practice opening up, sharing about it, and receiving. And last but not least, it's going to be really important to make sure that you're in a position where you can allow yourself to be seen and to be known. And this requires sharing your inner world with people. This requires like opening up a little bit here and there, sharing about a fear that you have or a concern that you have, or asking for a need that you might have if you're feeling not 100%. And if you get into a position where you can actually share these things with other people and receive support, what you're going to see is that that person's actions can actually help your nervous system to regulate, feel more soothed, move out of this fight or flight mode, more into this rest and repair, AKA parasympathetic nervous system mode. So these are some really important things to keep in mind if you are fearful avoidant, because they can be huge roadblocks if you struggle to really let people in and receive the support, and a really, really great place to get started. And as I mentioned, if you want to do a much deeper dive, you can check out that 14-day free trial. It's just for a limited time down below. And thank you so much for stopping by and for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying this channel. I would really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you in future videos.